All right, today we're looking at something pretty intense. It's the story of a single moment in time, a moment when a mountain literally moved and a community was changed forever. Let's jump right in. So, this one picture, this is everything we're going to work with. It's incredibly raw, incredibly powerful, and it just makes you ask, right? What in the world are we actually seeing here? What story is this photo trying to tell us? Okay, so for the next few minutes, let's put on our investigator hats. We're going to break this photo down piece by piece. We're not just looking at what happened, but we're going to dig into the how, and maybe most importantly, the why. So, first things first, we need to understand the anatomy of what we're seeing. What are the basic building blocks of a disaster like this? Let's start reading the scene. Now, you look it up in a textbook, and a landslide sounds, well, simple. It's just the movement of rock, dirt, and whatever else down a slope. Gravity doing its thing. But when you look at this picture, you realize that simple definition hides a power that is just absolutely terrifying. All right, our investigation starts at the very top of the image. The first clue in any landslide is something called the scar. Just look way up at the top of that hill. See that raw, exposed patch of earth, the lighter colored spot? That's the scar. It's basically a fresh wound on the mountain. It shows you the exact spot where everything just gave way and started its terrible slide down. Okay, so once you see the scar, your eyes just kind of naturally follow the destruction downwards, right? And that brings us to the second key piece of the puzzle. You can literally trace it, this huge carved out channel. This isn't just a simple trail, no way. This is a story of incredible force. Think of it like a river, but a river of rock and earth just scouring everything in its way, tearing up trees and carving a brand new violent gash into the side of that mountain. And while all of that stuff, all that energy, it had to stop somewhere. And that leads us to the third and honestly the most devastating part of this whole thing. Now, look down at the bottom of the picture. See where all that brown earth just spills out into the town? That's what's called the debris field. It's the final stop for all that moving rock and soil. And this, right here, is where the unstoppable force of nature smashes head-on into people's lives. Okay, so we've got the what. We've got the scar, the path, and the debris field. But that just leads to the bigger question, right? Why? Why did this happen? Well, let's look at what I like to call the recipe for disaster. You know, it might look totally random, like a bolt from the blue, but for geologists, events like this are, well, they're rarely a complete surprise. They're usually the result of a very specific mix of factors coming together, kind of like a perfect storm of geology. Yeah, you can really think of it as a recipe with three main ingredients. First, you need a steep slope. I mean, we can clearly see that in the picture, right? Gravity just works harder on steep hills. Second, the ground itself has to be unstable. Maybe it's loose soil, or it's soaked with water, or just weak rock. And then number three, you need a trigger, something that sets it all off. That could be anything from a huge rainstorm to an earthquake, or even human stuff like construction. You mix those three things together, and boom, you've unleashed a force of nature. And this is where our investigation gets really tough, because this isn't just a science lesson about geology. It's a story about people. It's about where we as humans decide to build our homes and our lives. Behind this one single silent photograph, there are just countless stories. Every single one of those houses you see, that's a family. That's a home, a future that was sitting directly in the past of this thing. It's not about numbers. It's about real human tragedy. So you look at that debris field just swallowing up those houses, and you have to ask the question, why? Why would anyone build a community in a place that's so obviously dangerous? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. It's usually a mix of things: money, a growing population, and sometimes there just aren't any safer places to go. And you know, the picture itself gives us some clues. Look how tightly packed those houses are. Not a lot of room to get out in an emergency. And the whole town is built, right at the bottom of that super steep hill we were just talking about. It's a classic pattern, really. As towns and cities grow, people start building in places that are, frankly, just not safe. And this really gets to a core idea, doesn't it? We like to think of the ground beneath us as solid, permanent. But it's not. It's a living, breathing thing. The Earth is this dynamic, always changing force.
So, we've broken down the scene, we've looked at the science, we've looked at the human side of it. So what? What's the big takeaway here? What are we supposed to learn from this?
What this single image does so powerfully is it shows us two things at once: the absolutely incredible raw power of our planet, and at the exact same time, just how vulnerable our towns and our homes can be.
So, what's the one thing, the really crucial point we need to get from this?
It's this: understanding the land we live on, that's not just some boring science homework. It's survival. It's about knowing the risks, planning ahead, and just being smarter about where and how we build. It's absolutely essential. And that really leaves us with one last question. And this one isn't about the photo anymore. It's about you. Think about where you live, your own community. How well do you really know the ground that's right underneath your feet?